When SAP Miller launched its Hansa Vuyo ads, little did it realize that one man would turn the fiction into a reality. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight I'm talking to Miles Kubheka, who decided to turn the Vuyo's brand into his own version of success. Just in case you've been on another planet or in a different country and you don't remember the Hansa ads, have a look at this.
Such a big dreamer.
He started off with one business, and now he's an Afrikaanski businessman.
Has become an overnight sensation.
He's on TV all the time.
Like a beautiful burgos roll.
Made famous by Vuyo!
Nobody dreams ordinary, so I drink ordinary beer.
He never forgets his roots.
Hello, can you hear me? That's what makes him our boy.
Step out of the ordinary. Hansa, refreshingly different.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. How many of you remember the advert? And how many of you thought Vuyo actually existed? So I saw the advert and I thought, you know, this must be based on a true story. I mean, it was such a well-executed advert and it ran for a period of time. I thought Vuyo existed. So I Googled only to find out there was no Vuyo. Totally fictitious character dreamt out by these guys here in Cape Town at an aid agency. I think it was after smoking some green stuff. But nonetheless, there it was, this amazing IP. In fact, I've subsequently chatted with SAB. They spent over 25 million rands in ad revenue and production to make that. And no one owned Vuyo's. So I promptly trademarked it and I became Vuyo from that day on. Sadly, my mom now calls me Vuyo. But the interesting thing about that is that from nowhere, I spotted an opportunity that sat there and I claimed it and I inherited 20 million rands worth of brand equity. And now you could work your entire life and never create brand equity worth that amount. And there it was sitting. So I often get asked as to why did I do it? You know, a lot of people saw the same advert as I did. And they come to my restaurant and says, dude, like, I want you to do exactly what you did. Why did you do it? You know? They asked me this question so many times. I started asking myself the same question. Why did I do it when nobody else did it and they had exactly the same parameters as I had? The only answer I could come up with is that for as long as I could remember, my mom always said to me, don't be an also-ran in life. If there's 5,000 people who set out to run a marathon, 4,999 of them serve to legitimize the winner. They are just there so that there's a number one. So go out and change the world, she said. And I remember thinking to myself, lay off me, woman, I'm only 3 years old. But I guess it was that sense of purpose from such an early age that ultimately propelled me to want to change the world or count for something. In fact, I always say I want to change the world. My son the other day says, Daddy, you need to be specific. You want to change the world for the better. And it's such a simple little thing, you know, you can change the world for whichever direction. So I want to change the world for the better. So there's a lot of speakers who speak for a living. I speak about my living. I tell people my journey or my story. And I find that, you know, people are very intelligent. They can connect the dots for themselves. I don't come and profess to know anything. And the reason why that is true, when I started as an entrepreneur, I couldn't find any content or books that could speak to my circumstance. Because when I started becoming an entrepreneur, I'm the first generation everything in my family. First one to go to university, first one to be on a plane, first everything. You name it, if you say first, I'm the first one to do it, right? So I don't have an uncle that I can ask for advice. This like, fuck all. Like, I got to figure it out. In fact, my uncle is the one who asked me for money. So it's like, you know, the black tax struggle is real. So now with that, if you have all those parameters, what you start doing is like you start looking for research somewhere else. You go, so I started reading a lot, finding out about how other entrepreneurs were doing it. And all the books I could find were not local, firstly. And secondly, they were written by pale white guys who were already successful. Oh, I just realized I'm the diversity guy for this talk. Oh, cool. So you gotta believe what I'm saying, because what Graham said, listen to the last guy, okay? Say, hey, I'm not just here to make up the numbers. It literally just clicked. But anyway, so in truth, I couldn't find any diversity books that could speak about entrepreneurship in my context, coming from townships, living in South Africa where there's a high unemployment rate. All the books were written by these old dudes who felt like when you read their books that they knew that they were going to be successful from day one, right? Because they write when they're old, so it's a memoir. They've forgotten how hard the hard yards were at the beginning. So they write with that veneer of success. And this was not my lived experience. It's flipping hard being an entrepreneur. So I was like, well, if I can't find anything that is more realistic to me, what about I write the book? How about if I write about my journey as I'm going through it? I'm not successful by any stretch of the imagination, but surely my experience may help a Sipho or a Temba to avoid the same hurdles. So I wrote a book. It was exclusive for a while. It was exclusive books, I think third most stolen book. The Bible being number one, so I was in good company. And it gave me real street cred, you know. Number three, stolen book. So I'm going to quickly share some of the recipes. They're not recipes of success. They're just recipes of what I've learned for each individual experience. Cool? So the first one is start by starting. There's a lot of people in this room and in every corporate that sit with incredible ideas. You know, guys who came up with the please call me. Things that change fundamental businesses. In fact, one of my passions is that I think most businesses are going to die in 100 years' time because all the entrepreneurs that founded those businesses would be dead. Once a company starts cruising on autopilot and it's got over 5,000 or 10,000 people and the original guy who started it is not there, you lose that spark, that sense of purpose, that energy, because everybody else is just an MBA rocking up and doing, no offense to the MBAs, because, you know, they don't work for me too. So, but the point is, you need that level of entrepreneurship to continuously be sparked in your businesses. And that's why I speak about what I speak and why I speak to it to corporates, because it's very easy to get corporatized. And there's just people just stamping, you know, there's no purpose of why you're doing. And more importantly, there's no one willing to start anything. In fact, more importantly, there's no one who knows how to start anything, right? Because the guy who started everything is dead, is long gone. Everybody else just is perpetuating that start, right? So most important thing about anything, idea, getting it to the next level, is start by starting. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to actually achieve in practice, and I'll show you why. So how we started, now that I own the trademark Vuyo, I was like excited. I got this banner. That's all I had, a banner. I was working at Microsoft at the time, and I saw the advert, trademarked it, got the banner, and I went to the local Fourways farmers market, and I started selling boerewors. It was my mom's recipe for the chakalaka, and that's all I had. And a grill. And the interesting story about the grill is that we bought it on that day. So we rock up at the market and we realize, damn, they've given us a wooden trestle table. And we got this grill that is a flat, you gotta put it on something. Oi. So, you know, grill, cook with fire, wood, not a good combination. So we pick up one of those, those concrete slab stones, the path stones. We put it between the grill and the table. And that worked great for the first 3-4 weeks. Week number 5, Peter, the guy in the picture, turns around to me, says, Miles, we're on fire. I go, I know, look at the crowd, right? We're running a crowd 50 deep. He goes, no, we're on fire. It turns out he forgot to put the concrete slab between the grill and the table was actually burning right through. And the heat was so big now, it was melting the shade netting. Right? So creating a natural vortex, so the fire is going higher. And I'm running a queue. And first time I'm looking on the ground, I'm like, oi, whatever. And I realize the floor is made out of wood chips. No fire extinguisher, nothing. First thing you discover as an entrepreneur is Jesus. Because for the life of me, I can't tell you why we didn't burn down the market. I could see the headline, Vuyo burns down Fourways Farmers Market, and we didn't. And I've got no good reason for that. So, the next video shows you what it actually takes to start. Oh, before that, Oh, by the way, these are my new slides. I'm quite excited about them. I did them just for you guys, and I kid you not. The interesting thing about the slides, I'm working on a recipe book, a real cookbook. So all the pictures you're going to see are actually pictures from the cookbook. So this is the video.
We shouldn't be up here, Drac.
Who's ready to fly?
Me, like a superhero.
Better, like a vampire.
I don't know about this.
He's half human. Maybe the kid isn't supposed to fly.
Quiet. This is how they learn. You throw them and they figure it out. It's how I was taught.
I want to fly now.
The bat. You know Grandpa's right here if you need him.
I can't watch this.
Please don't. Here we go!
He's still not flying.
He will.
Still not.
It'll happen.
This is a tall tower.
That's why it's good. You should get him.
Drac!
I did that my first time. He's getting too close to the ground. You know what? He's not gonna fly.
Again!
And that's the truth of starting anything. So all of you guys in here or in a corporate environment, everybody's got great ideas, but everybody goes to bed with those ideas because everybody's afraid to jump, is afraid to be made fun of. And you know what? Because the circumstance lends itself that no one is willing to put up their hand, all good ideas literally go to bed with those people every day. Until one day they wake up and they say, "Bugger this," and they go into their garage and they start creating a competing product that could have been easily done within the same company. Point is, at some point, people need to jump. Unfortunately, unlike this, this little Dracula, not everybody's got someone to catch them. So I can tell you from a guy who's been on the outside, when you jump, the likelihood of landing on the ground and splatting is real. I've done it a couple of times and it hurts. And it hurts real, real bad, right? But the trick is getting up, maybe putting back that rib in place and going back up. Because funny enough, like the kid says, once you've jumped and you realize that you've gotten over the initial fear, it becomes easier to jump the second time. It becomes easier to jump out of the plane the third and the fourth time. That's why people keep climbing mountains more. They climb the one and it's like, oh, there's another one. They jump out of a plane, they want to jump out of a bigger one. They fly a small one, then they want to fly a 747, right? Because you get to see that it's possible. So, dream bigger. That's the other thing that I realized in my journey. People don't dream big enough. It's the weirdest thing. The smaller your dreams, the more limiting you are, limiting yourself. And I learned this at Microsoft. When I joined, they said, we're going to put a PC on every desktop in the world. I was like, dudes, I'm from Africa. I don't know what weed you're smoking, but there's not even electricity in most of my continent. Now you're going to put a desktop on every desk on the planet. Look today, Africa's got cell phones 3 to 1 per person. I think that dream was achieved and then some. So sometimes the dream never gets achieved in the way you intended to get it achieved. But if it's big enough, it's almost always likely that it will be achieved. So I dreamed big. My vision was not to end up at the market selling Boerewors rolls. You know, I wanted to see myself looking at my bricks and mortar building and saying, that's us, that's Vuyo's. And that's exactly what I did. I found what I thought was the most perfect location in Braamfontein. But by that time, when we finished shop fitting the store and done everything, I was so broke, I didn't have money to launch the store. So on the 26th of December, I was like, wait, that was the launch day. In fact, the business was incorporated on the 12th of the 12th of the 12th. Binary, because I was in IT, so that's important. But anyway, so we got 4 snow machines, and we made it snow. It was cool. It was overcast that day, and you know we had snow, and people were eating toikies and Boerewors and dombola. You know, it was very nice and cozy, and everybody was having fun. Except the next day, not a single customer. I couldn't have chosen the worst time to open a restaurant. On the 27th, there was not a single person in Braamfontein because all the Zulus are in KZN, the Xhosas are back in the Eastern Cape and Western Cape. There's no one in Braamfontein, right? I'm like, oi, I'm sitting there. I remember that day clearly. I'm sitting there. The tables are like lily white, like corporate South Africa. I'm like, what have I done? You know, like, how did I get here? And then I decided to call the Sunday Times and I said, would you be interested in hearing about how we made it snow in the middle of an African summer? They go, meh. So I decided to write the article for them. I wrote the whole thing. I wrote, it was amazing, used big words, put the journalist's byline, PDF emailed the document to him. He called me back with a smirk in his voice. He asked me 1 or 2 questions. At this point, I'm thinking we maybe make it to page 189 on the Sunday Times, and it's a very thin one in December. And that was the picture I put in, and we made it to the front page of the Sunday Times the other day. I don't know if you can see, there's a little bullet point at the corner there. That's what the journalist actually wrote. The rest of the article I wrote myself. But the part he wrote was the most important part, because he actually did some investigative journalism, because he called SAB and said, there's this dude who's taking your brand and he's doing this. What do you guys think about it? And they're like, oh, well, if he's got the kahunas, good luck to him, kind of thing. And I learned a very important lesson there, that in life it is often better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Because had I asked for permission, they would have probably said no. But now that I had done it, they kind of didn't have much to go on. And then the second thing I learned was that most journalists often write negative stories because they don't have to go look for negative stories. Nkandla just lands on your lap. But good stories, you got to kind of work at it and make his job as easy as getting the bad stories. And once you go into this media cycle and everyone just kind of picks up your story because all the other guys are equally lazy. So before I know it, I was in this media cycle. I was actually Vuyo, and it had some really cool stuff that came out of that. I mean, I remember I was doing this one outdoor event. These 2 blonde girls run up to me and they go, are you Vuyo? I go, yeah. They go, will you autograph our boobs? I was like, yeah, rock star. I was like, yeah. So I was on radio and TV and doing all sorts of cool stuff, meeting really interesting people. That's Richard Branson to you guys, Rich to me. I don't joke. He just sent me a copy of his latest book, autobiographed, and sent it to me. So it's like some really cool perks. I'm going to skip some of these slides just due to time, because I want to tell you this part. I've got 4 minutes left. Yeah. So doing good is good business. I want to tell you, we live in a country where 50% of our youth is unemployed, 60% of which are girls, and only 10% of all school leavers will find a job. At face value, this statistic is real and it's shocking. But for me as an entrepreneur, I always see this as a great opportunity, that I live in a country that's got this abundance of natural resource. All I have to figure out is, how do I augment my business to exploit? And I use words like exploit because this is a business. I need to find ways of making my business that I can incorporate this landscape. And that's exactly what I started doing. I realized that the best business model is the franchise business model. The problem with it is that it's too expensive and there's a high barrier of entry. A KFC costs $6 million, 3 million rands of which must be unencumbered cash. You must have that in cash. So those guys are never going to be in a position to own a KFC. And yet that's the business model that we want, where people have already taken the risk out of that business so that someone else can come in and just run it and grow it. But if it's $6 million, it's perversely keeping people out. So after I studied these models and I studied them, I realized actually I was gifted the best business, because Vuyo starts off with a cart. And then if you build enough carts, at some point you can use that capital to move you up to a food truck. More food trucks use that capital to get to a bricks and mortar business, right? Makes sense. And that's exactly what we did. We started getting phone calls from a chap like him who's selling burgers outside a school somewhere. You can't really see him. He's from Limpopo, so he's a bit dark. Anyway, but we don't interview for anything but attitude, because the rest you can teach. We're not working with rocket science, even though we do work with gas. So we'll pull him in, train him on how to do the basic customer service and all of that. And before you know it, he's doing 40 to 50 grand outside a retail store from nowhere. We became victims of our success. We were so good at doing this that the retailers started realizing that, hang on, 50 grand times 12 months, he could take all that money, take his whole family overseas if he puts his own staff out there. So life sometimes, claps you. So in our quest to turn Vuyopreneurs into Vuyonaires, we moved on. We innovated. we discovered that food trucks were actually a better model, because when you're selling outside on those carts, you're sitting in the sun all day, and there's many variables that you can't control, weather and all sorts of stuff, stock. But with a food truck, guess what? You get paid in advance because you start doing corporate clients, right? And that was so cool. The downside of these VW combis, as you'll see, is that as hipster cool as they are, and VW stands for Vuyo's Vors, of course, is that those Volkswagens used to break. Because they're from 1946. They break even when they're standing still. So what I would do is, like, if a client like Standard Bank says, no, they want to do an outdoor event, come and, the team building thing, we'd say to the client, we like to bring our vehicles the day before, the evening before, because, we like to make sure to recon the site and know, and I'll give them the spiel, BS, like I'll give it to them late thick, and they're like, oh, these guys are so professional. Meanwhile, I just needed to come in the dark with a flatbed truck to deliver my food truck. And the next day, after they had one or two drops, it didn't really matter. So this was the 702 Walk the Talk event about 3 years ago. I started an association of the mother truckers. All those trucks to my right are like R1 million truck each. Mine was 150K, and that's our queue. And they don't stand in a queue that long to get to the front and ask for one buri. On average, you're selling 4, and it's not a 20 Rand buri roll, it's a 65 Rand buri roll. Right? The only time you see black people in a queue that long is when it's voting day. Unless, of course, in the front of a Vuyo's truck. So, I'm going to end off on this slide and tell you something that's really, really important. That failure is an option. The days are gone where companies used to say, failure is not an option, Six Sigma, you must be perfect. You must embrace failure. You must want to have an organization where failure can happen. And I know it sounds so esoteric, but that stuff is real. The sustainability of business going forward is the willingness to take risk. And I'll tell you, when I closed my Braamfontein store, whereas 2 years before I was on the front page of the Sunday Times, 2 years later I was locking it out for the last time because I had spectacularly failed. Well, I like to rephrase it. I had spectacularly learned. And I moved my restaurant to Soweto, a place where I thought I didn't want to go because everybody's in the northern suburbs. That's where I want to be. Let me tell you to you this way. In Soweto, my restaurant does more in one weekend in turnover than my Braamfontein store did in a month. Now, had I failed and quit with Braamfontein, I would have never known that it was possible to still achieve my goal, perhaps in a different way. So one of the key lessons I've learned is that failure is actually, we need to reframe it. Failure is pivoting. It's life pivoting you. It's course correction. Life sometimes course corrects you because you're on the wrong path. And if I look back, all those pivots have turned out to be the most pivotal parts of my journey. And I believe everybody in this room has a story to tell. So let's not sit here with our dreams and go to bed and sleep with our dreams and not share them. The world needs them. More importantly, South Africa needs them. Because if we were going to solve all that unemployment and all those ills we currently face, we're not going to be doing it with the same corporates doing the same thing. We need to start thinking out of the box. And my final slide, which I'm going to, it's my brag slide. It's this one. Oh, can I go back? Yeah, this one. Cool.
It's been wonderful. I also got to listen to the talented Miles. Wow, what a powerful story. A lot of young people can learn from that, and a lot of old people can learn from that.
And the trick is learn. Thank you very much.
Wow. Good man.
Thank you.
Great story. When does the recipe book come out?
By October this year, because you want to hit Christmas. So yeah.
And it's a business story recipe book based on food and business principles.
You know what I've discovered? Food is the most amazing thing that brings people together. And one of my frustrations about South Africa is that, you know that after your national flag, your national anthem, your food, your cuisine is the third most important thing that defines you as a nation. In South Africa, we stand in queues for months when an overseas brand comes and sells us coffee, like we never had coffee before, or donuts, like we never had vetkoek or amagwinya. We've been having this, but because someone else has packaged it and brought it here, we line up for it. We've never bothered to package and be proud of our own culture. And if we're not proud of it, no one else is going to be.
Pretty certain that's going to be a bestseller. Miles Kubheka, thank you very much.